It's good to have him. You're going to hear him periodically all throughout as far as the goings on within the confines of our nation. He is Congressman George Santos, and of course, he presides over the 3rd Congressional. And nice enough to give us a couple of minutes here. Busy Thursday morning it is. Congressman, good to have you.
Thank you for having me, Jay. I appreciate that.
Lots of happening. Let's start with the debt ceiling. Got a showdown happening here where the House approved the bill. Very close vote it was. I think it was by 2, right? 217, 250. No Democratic support. Of course, champion by the Speaker and Kevin McCarthy would raise the limit on money the government can borrow through next year. All in all, it's a negotiation. I don't see that as a negotiation as far as the other side. George, give us a little bit of an assessment of what you're seeing down there.
So, Jay, the bill yesterday, and for everybody asking, and I've been inundated with questions. It's simple. This is the beginning of a negotiation. What we just did yesterday, we got Speaker McCarthy a seat at the table to go sit with the President of the United States and to actually start to negotiate and show the President that it's not going to be his way or the highway. Was this the perfect bill? No. But this is the beginning of what we hope to be a perfect bill, a perfect result for the American people.
Yeah, and it's, listen, the stakes are very high here, folks, because if the U.S. breaches the debt limit, it could be forced to default on its debts. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And you look at a default, what does default to? Well, it could set off, a calamity as far as an economic sense because U.S. debt, which underpins much of the financial system. I mean, think about it. I mean, it would collapse in value. I mean, pretty much that is the deal. I mean, the ramifications, Congressman, are huge here with all that's going on.
The ramifications of defaulting on our debt is simple. We hand over power to China. They make the argument that we are not trustworthy, we are unreliable, and that is the beginning of the end for us and for quite frankly, American greatness as we know it. This wouldn't just have domestic effects. This would have international, global effects where we would now be essentially handing over control of quite frankly, the dollar would lose its value to a point where the Chinese would get away with exactly what they want. So I want to make sure people understand this isn't about continuing to add to the national debt. We all understand that we have to find a way to start paying that down. But right now, what we have to do is get to the negotiation table with the president so that we don't hand this over to President Xi and let him start running the show. Because we all know humanitarian rights and all the other rights that we also cherish very much are not shared common values of the Chinese.
No question. And, when you think of it, talking with Congressman George Santos here, folks, but when you think about it, the government has spent way too much money. And, the debt deficits are completely unsustainable when you think about it. And thus, what we're in right now in this inflationary period, when you have the reckless spending, it has, to put it bluntly, that's what we're going through right now. So you're trying to somehow ease it somewhat. But, listen, a lot of people will say, George, going back a couple of years, when Republicans did control the House, the Senate, the White House, talking, 2017 and 18. I mean, you can make the case that they increased federal spending and deficits. And in essence, it's, kind of a point the finger here, point the finger there. But, you look at it right now, and we are seeing what has facilitated a lot of abuse. You have a lot of abuse currently and certainly in the past as well. You can make the case, no?
Well, the case is simple. We don't have to make the case on 17 and 18. We can make the case over the last 2 decades. Every single president has signed on to law debt ceiling increases, and the spending just gets worse and worse and worse as each president and as each fiscal year goes by. The reality is this is not just a Republican or Democrat issue. This is every single person who's been in office making that decision over the course of the last 2 decades at very least. My argument is very simple. I was a very early on holdout on this bill because I think there's no excuse that we continue to spend recklessly. If you have a credit card, Jay, and you max out, you don't call the credit card company and say, "Oh, just give me a little bit more credit. I'll pay. I promise you, I'll pay it down." Right? That doesn't work that way. But the United States seems to think it does. The reality is, and here's a little math for you: if we were to adopt the same exact budget of 2019, we would have a 28% surplus right now. And we can use that 28% surplus to pay down debt. And I'll give you this more. If you wanted to add inflationary adjustment, let's say from the 28% surplus, let's just slash it in half. We still have a 14% surplus. That's with inflationary adjustment of 50%, which is not accurate. I'm just being very generous here. So the fact that we can't balance the budget just blows my mind, and I really hope that when this comes back from the Senate, from the president's negotiation with the speaker, that we can actually put forward a balanced budget proposal and not this nonsensical continue to increase because we have to excuse.
You fly on the wall as far as those talks, because we know that Democrats have largely resisted negotiating over debt limit. I don't want to hear this. It's, comparable to hostage taking and everything else. Enough is enough. I mean, it's a negotiation. That's what you get, where Democrats control the Senate, Republicans control the House. So therefore, negotiate. I mean, really, it's common sense. It's common sense. But I don't want to hear the fact that, Democrats are warning, negotiating sets kind of a bad precedent, one that could ultimately hurt Republican administrations as well and whatnot here. Come on. I mean, enough is enough. I mean, it is a negotiation. Let's have a negotiation, a true negogiation.
The whole hostage rhetoric, that's just news rhetoric, right? There's no hostage situation here. I was accused of holding my vote hostage in exchange for all sorts of things. All things were not true, but the media just likes to spin rhetoric. The media just likes, unfortunately, the mainstream media these days they don't help at all in these cases. They add. They're almost like adding gasoline to the fire, creating this sentiment nationally, and then misleading the American people to believe that there's this crazy corrupt negotiation going on, when in reality that's not what's going on. So we need in these kinds of situations, in these kinds of big votes, important consequential votes, in the divided Congress, we need less of that rhetoric, and we need more of the, encouragement to negotiate. But unfortunately, that doesn't sell for the media, I believe, and they like to set, raise the alarms of all chaos. So if we promote chaos, we will live in a perpetual state of chaos. If we promote that divided government is ineffective, we will live in a perpetual state of ineffective government, because that's what we're projecting. We need to start looking at the positives. We need to start working with each other. We need to start getting past our differences to work within our common ground, because the one thing I know is that every Democrat and Republican alike come to Washington, D.C. because they believe that they can better this country, as not only for their districts, but as a whole. So this is how we need to start thinking. I'm getting very sick and tired of the rhetoric, getting very sick and tired of the divisive, vicious rhetoric that takes place out there. Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, and the leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, I strongly believe in my life that they both have the best interest of the American people. And I know they're going to work together to get to Joe Biden, which has to work with us. He has no option. It's not going to be his way or the highway.
Because you know what? Nothing gets done. When you go back and forth, nothing gets done. And that's a big problem right now. People are tired of it. And especially when you look at 2024, because economics, folks, is number one as far as what the American people are thinking right now. And 78% in a recent poll, a couple of different polls, but conglomerately, 78% of the American people are thinking that this administration is doing a very poor job as far as the economy. So keep that in mind as we advance ourselves. Talking with Congressman George Santos. Recent announcement, re-election announcement for you, sir. Give me a sense. I mean, we know it's kind of early from a congressional sense, but give me an idea what you're thinking here. Go ahead.
Jay, look, here's how I look at this. There's two ways that this happens. I can either go the Liz Cheney way, which despite her not following a single one of her campaign promises, going completely against the grain of what her district did, she faced the music. And facing the music is facing your constituents, standing up and saying, look, this is what I did for you. This is my report card. You get to hire me again or you get to fire me. And they made a decision. I'm not going to go the Adam Kinzinger way, who went absolutely, completely crazy, devote completely out of touch with his district, and then at the end decided to take the coward ways out and didn't face the music. So I have no issue facing the music and facing my constituents and asking them to judge me on my record and what I have done and what I will accomplish for them in the course of the next 2 years. My reelection announcement was a formality, just so people know, hey, yeah, I am running for reelection. Everyone else already had done it without any big flashy announcements because they've already raised $500,000 plus. So, they had great $500,000 plus quarters, tons of help from all the lobbyists in D.C. and all these organizations that love to buy influence. The benefit of it all is I don't take those folks' money. I don't want it. I'm not interested. Pharma, oil, you can all go pound sand. That's not who I work for. That's not how I won last time. It's not how I plan on trying to win the second time. So that's just to give you some sense, right? This was a formality. I did it so people knew it. Well, it's to end the speculation because there was so much speculation. Is he not? And as I said, I work for the American people. I don't work for the party bosses. I don't care how many negative statements or threatening statements they could put out there. To me, it's nothing more than just digital garbage and noise, just like every other spam ad that I see on my computer. So I wish them well, but they need to remember they do not control who represents the American people. It is the people who control who represent themselves.
One other thing, you're declaring roughly, do the math here, 17 months or so ahead of the next congressional election. Do you believe you can raise the cash, enough cash, whatever it is, $500,000, $1 million in the meantime and everything else? And we know the spotlight has been on you from a campaign dollar sense. Are you confident that you can have enough in the coffers, people on your side in that span of time, George?
Yes. I'm confident we can raise the money. I'm confident we can, get back into the district and remind people why they voted for me in the beginning and what my record has been and how it represents exactly what I said I would do. I have been doing while I'm in this body.
George Santos, ladies and gentlemen, you will hear him periodically throughout, and we appreciate. We'll keep an eye on things. As far as the conversations between the Speaker and the President regarding the debt ceiling and many, many other types of situations in and around the nation these days. Lots of happening. George, can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Jay. You have a great day.